Today's topic is language. Language is the use of symbols to represent, transmit, and store meaning and information. Symbols can include organized patterns of sounds, visual representations, and movements. Human language is quite complex, and as we know, it is made up of more than just spoken words. Visual cues make up most of our language and communication. One of the most compelling questions when it comes to language is how do humans acquire language? In the 1950s, Noam Chomsky proposed his theory to answer the question of language acquisition. He believed that humans were born with an innate ability to learn languages. He thought that humans were born with the knowledge of basic grammatical structure. Essentially, our brains were hardwired with the ability to use syntax or grammar. He felt this was the reason why children were able to pick up on language so quickly. The natural tendency to acquire language can be called the language acquisition device, or a LAD. This LAD allows the brain to understand and use grammar as well as enables people to put ideas into sentences to be communicated with other people. People may have the LAD, but environmental influences impact the ability to learn language as well. Learning theorists claim that language learning is similar to other types of learning, and children learn language in part by observing others. We see that with all children beginning with a babbling stage, but they begin to imitate others around them and speak the similar sounds to their families, while they drop the sounds that are not used in the language spoken at home. Language contains three basic elements: phonemes, morphemes, and syntax. When we combine all these elements together, we get language. The most basic sounds of language are called phonemes. Humans can produce about 100 different sounds, but the English language only uses about 43 phonemes. Phonemes are the smallest part of language and contain no meaning. The word dog has 3 different phonemes: the d, the and the g. The next portion of language is called a morpheme. These are the smallest units of speech that contain meaning. Prefixes and suffixes are considered morphemes because these portions of words contain meaning. For example, the prefix pre means before. You can also make a word past tense by adding the ed to the end of the word. Some words in themselves, like car and bike, are considered to be morphemes in themselves. The final element to language is called syntax. Syntax is the way in which words are arranged to make phrases and sentences. The rules for word order are the grammar of a language. Different languages use different word orders, but they all follow a consistent order. Another essential concept related to language is called semantics. Semantics is the study of the meaning of words within language. There are words in the English language that mean different things when used differently in a sentence. For example, with the word long, it would be a long time before dinner is served, and we long for a tasty dinner. The word long has 2 completely different meanings. So how do we learn language? Children learn language in a sequence of steps, and these steps are the same for almost all children, no matter where they grow up. The first stage is crying, cooing, and babbling. These are not considered true language because the symbols carry no meanings. At about 6 months, children start to babble, which, unlike cooing and crying, babbling has the sound of speech. Children from cultures whose languages sound different all babble similar sounds, including sounds they have not heard. After babbling comes the learning of words, which can be considered the true start to language development. At first, children acquire new words slowly, but at about 18 months, children are saying dozens of words. Children's first words tend to be nouns, which are the names for things. The next stage of language development is the development of grammar. The first thing that children say are usually brief, but they do carry the meanings of sentences. When children approach the age of 2, they use 2-word sentences like that doggy. This could seem simple to you, but in reality, that children is saying, that is a doggy. Between the ages of 2 and 3, children's sentences expand to include missing words. They add articles, conjunctions, possessives, and demonstrative adjectives, pronouns, and prepositions. Language obviously develops beyond this, but these are the important early stages of language development. With all this being said, it is important that children get exposure to language early in life. This is called the critical period. If a child is not exposed to language development early, they will be behind other children that are getting proper language development through speaking and reading with their parents. Many people, especially where we live, speak more than one language. To speak 2 languages fluently is bilingualism. In general, it is much easier to learn 2 languages during childhood than it is later in life. This fact supports the theory that there is a period in childhood during which language acquisition is easiest and most effective. Bilingualism in the United States is growing and beginning to get closer to the level that exists in Europe, where large proportions of the population speak the native language and English, and in some cases, the languages of neighboring nations. For more than 60 million people in the United States, English is actually their second language. In the past, people believed that children raised in a bilingual household were at a disadvantage because their minds were crowded and their mental capacity was limited. Today, most psychologists believe that this is actually good for children's cognitive development. Bilingualism expands a child's awareness of different cultures. People who are bilingual also have numerous additional brain connections and neural networks. They have extensive practice in suppressing one language while learning or speaking another, which requires different mental abilities than people who only speak one language. This gives bilingual people the ability to resist distraction and inhibit impulses. Not all thinking is done with language. We must move through our daily lives without telling ourselves in language what to do. Take driving, for example. Most of navigation through driving is done using mental images or mental maps. When we move through the world, our minds create a cognitive map that allows us to navigate in the world without having to think about it. Think about the last time you walked through a mall that you had never been to before. You walked in, found some stores you were looking for, got an Orange Julius, and then walked back out without even thinking about it. You were able to do this because your mind created a cognitive map of the mall as you were exploring this new environment. This is just one way in which your mind thinks without using language. Well, that's it for our discussion on language. Hopefully you were able to learn a little bit about the development of human language. Thank you so much for watching. This has been You Will Love Psychology.